Okay, let's get back to the second part of mine and Lizzy's conversation with Ranior. Moving on to talk about more modern Terra Mystica. I won't waste any more time because it's a bit of a longer conversation, other than to say that this episode is not sponsored by Earth One. Unfortunately, after the last episode, the Earth One marketing board did their due diligence and they discovered Ryan's alt BGA account, Earth One is for chumps, and his general disdain for Earth One, and they were very angry. They've retracted their sponsorship with immediate effect. So anyway, enjoy the rest of the episode. So in your opinion, what is like if you could win anything, including like Div 1 of Snailman Tmtour, or like live stuff like the World Board Game Championship, what do you view as kind of the pinnacle? Which would you most like to win now at this point?
The most prestigious is still winning D1 of Tmtour. It's by far it's like the toughest to win because you gotta join down at D7 still, and so you gotta play for at least like a year in order to get to Division 1, and then you have to win Division 1, which is crazy hard. But I've accepted long ago that I'm not an elite level asynchronous player because I don't want to put in hours of analysis into my moves, and I don't. I largely play async games like I play live games. I log in, I look at the board for a minute, and I make a move. That's not how you win Tmtour or a lot of these asynchronous Snellman games. So for me, realistically, it's tricky. The most prestigious thing I think I've done was getting the #1 rating on Board Game Arena. I think that's pretty tough to achieve and shows continued long-term success. I'd love to win F2O, but again, it's because it is relatively few games. I mean, it's very March Madnessy. The winner is a strong player, but I don't think the tournament does a good job of finding the strongest player. But that's not its goal. Its goal is to be entertaining, and it very much succeeds at that. So, but to find the strongest player, yeah, I mean, Bizzle would have to broadcast 40 games or something insane and limit it to like 16 players or some nonsense. So, yeah. So anyhow, yeah, I don't know. I mean, winning F2O or an MSO event is all kind of the same to me. They're just 1 day, 2 day type tournaments, basically, where we're playing. It's essentially single elimination. You're playing 3 or 4 games, and you basically have to win them all in a row. Again, those events find strong players, but they don't often find the best. So yeah, I winning an arena season would be cool, but arenas also has some trickiness because you have to play quite a few games, I think, in order to really be able to win an arena season.
Right? Because isn't it more about? I mean, obviously you have to win a lot, but isn't it more about how many games you played? I mean, if you played a ton, then you're going to be higher up in the ratings.
It's a little of both. I mean, your results matter, and like hypothetically, you could show up and just win 20 games in a row, and you'd be at the top of the board. But winning 20 games in a row is an insane feat. Like, it's not realistic. And so arena seasons do partly reward volume because the more games you play, kind of the more time you have for your rating to go on a hot streak. Like, the real way that you win an arena season is you're a very strong player, and then you get on a hot streak and you know when to stop. That's really kind of what it takes. And so if I was to play 500 games in an arena season, somewhere in that period, I would probably have had a pretty hot streak and get near the top. But most arena seasons, I'm not willing to play more than a game every other day, which means I can get like 45 to 50. But Nerdcube is obviously our arena champ, but he tends to play over 100 games a season, which I do think gives him a bit of an edge. He has a better chance of getting on a kind of hot streak and winning 3-4 tough games in a row and getting up to those 1840s types elo, and then you just park there, which is what he's doing this season. So,
right.
Yeah, I've got in the can ready to upload. I've got a conversation with Nerdcube, sort of mostly about arena mode, and yeah, that's kind of what he was talking about.
And so that's great. But like ultimately, yes, I guess I dream for the day where somehow we have an arena mode that like whittles our way down to the top like actual like top 20 30 players, and then we somehow have to schedule games and well, I don't know. Basically, yeah, like if there was some event that really somehow made the top players play each other a bunch, and then I would care the most about winning that. But of all the things in live play, I like to win any of them because it's fun. But I don't know, winning in arena season's pretty prestigious. Winning any of the F2O or MSO events is good fun, and it's meaningful. It shows you're quite a strong player, but I don't necessarily know which is the most meaningful. I guess F2O at this point, I think it just has the biggest probably eyeballs and production value, and most people know about it. I think a lot more people know who's won the F2O games than who won MSO or WBC or anything.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's the kind of thing of, us new to the scene people is we get, I've been attracted by the bright lights of F2O. And so that, and in a way, if that, like you say, if that is what most people are watching, that kind of becomes the default most prestigious thing. I don't know. It's an interesting.
I think people are, definitely drawn to the drama of it. Everything hinging on one game is so much more exciting than saying, okay, these two players are going to play 50 games and we'll see who wins the most.
Yeah, just share it. Like I can send it to my friends and be like, watch this YouTube video. This is like the final of one of the biggest tournaments or the biggest tournament. Yeah, you can't be like... Yeah.
Correct, and you're getting very high quality play, so it's totally fine. I personally am just a little salty about my past F2O performance, and so that's the other reason I poo-pooed a little. So, but I mean, like I don't know, it is tough. Like in the very first season, the teams, the breakdowns were not at all equal. I wound up in the group with freaking Zoras, Nerdcube, and FireX, and then I take a very close second to Nerdcube, and I'm out. I'm out of the tournament. Like, okay, I mean, fine, but like, and then Nerdcube winds up going and taking second overall. Like, fair enough, but yeah, I mean, I had my one chance. I played so that first season was weird. We had 2 games or whatever, but I took a third and a first, and Nerdcube took a first, a second, and so he advanced in the group, and fair enough, but. And then I mean, similar ideas. The other season, I played freaking Nerdcube and Gino and lost to both of them, and Gino went on to win the whole thing that season. So they're great players. I don't have much shame in losing to them, but yeah, it's tough. Like in order to win these events, you admittedly do have to win those games, but I take real close finishes, and that's your whole tournament. So well.
Well, how do you feel about your group coming up in the new Fire 2 Open season?
I'm still salty, so.
Who are you? What's the draw? I can't remember.
Everybody wanted to pick me, which...
Oh, you got a lot of... Everyone mentioned you.
Everybody wanted to pick me, which isn't great, because the whole way these things are supposed to work is, like, people are supposed to want to pick the weak players, but I'd like to believe I'm the strong player, and so then you pick me early, and we get very strong groups. So I'm against Barnawall again, along with FireX and Matt the Lesser. That's a pretty strong group.
That's a strong table, yeah.
Now, to be fair, there probably is one stronger table, but similar idea. For whatever reason, Deep Finesse also decided he didn't want to pick easy opponents. And look, Bizzle hypothetically had the easiest opponents, and look where that gets you to. So I mean, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But I mean, I think my group's very good. Barnawall has proven himself over the last couple months to be a very, very good player. FireX is always dangerous. I do think I'm a bit better than him in general, and my record I think generally indicates that, but he's definitely capable of beating me. And then I don't have that much experience with Matt the Lesser, but through the Snellman world he's very good, and he's been proving himself to be pretty good in live play. So
if I remember correctly, I think they were saying that you're a predictable player. Is that what they said?
Oh, I mean, they say whatever they want. I mean, I say a lot of things too. But yeah, I mean, a lot of them were claiming that I am predictable, and I kind of am. I don't actually think like while NerdCube said he wanted to pick me, that's for show. Eric's way too good of a competitor. There's no way he was actually going to take me if I was available. Like he was going to say that, but he was not going to pick me in my opinion. I could be wrong. Maybe I'm calling him out incorrectly, but given that, he eventually did pretty much what I always do too. You say a lot of things about a lot of players and then you find a way to justify picking what you think is the worst player. That's what I did last season. I said a lot of things about many players, and then I picked J Stu. So,
did you not pick Barnwell last time?
Oh no, I didn't pick Barnwell. No. I said a lot of things about Barnwell.
You just mentioned it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I went through a whole list. Of players, gave a lot of trash talk, and that Barnwell trash talk definitely is the one that came back to bite me. But because Barnwell eventually wound up in my group anyhow. But yeah, I did pick J Stu.
I forget the order of that. Okay, that's good. The thing I say about this like group selection thing is like it's great. Like as a viewer, all tournaments should be run like that because it's exactly what you say. Your incentive is to pick the worst player, but then as Bizzle has found, he picked sort of like the less good players, but then the pressure's on to perform at that point, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, wait, I haven't seen the game from yesterday because I was traveling all day.
Oh. Sorry for the spoilers.
Do you mind knowing, Lizzy?
I guess go. I mean, you've already sort of implied that Bizzle lost, I think.
Yeah, so we're talking on...
Oh, he lost.
on June the 20th, which is the day after the second game. So also by the time this comes out, you're playing on this coming Wednesday.
Yeah, I've not played yet, but by the time people are hearing this, I probably will have. So
yeah, so they'll know the result. But yeah, Bizzle played yesterday against Slippery, Tepbep, and Ninja. It was a really fun game. Bizzle came in. Oh, was he fourth?
Oh, he's fourth by a distance. It was not close.
Oh no!
It went real bad for him.
Oh, yeah. What happened?
I mean, a little bit starting spots didn't break the way he wanted. I would argue he made a couple strategic choices early, and yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing is if you pick those weak players, then you do it. Whereas like Deep Finesse has gone in and picked Zavok, so if that's like a real psychological advantage.
Well, I don't know if it's I don't know if I believe it's an advantage, but I guess I will admit, yeah, my harsh group. At least if I continue my poor performances in F2L, I will just once again shrug my shoulders and be like, oh, if I lose to Fire X and Barnawal, well, it's not that shocking. Like,
but yeah, I fully believe like it. All things should be run like that. Like NFL playoffs, it should be. You're a Packers fan, right? Packers should have to pick who they play,
who they're gonna play. That is interesting, and have to actually provide some trash talk.
Who's their biggest rival?
Minnesota Vikings, Chicago Bears, but also currently the Packers. Yeah, this is a sidetrack. Milwaukee Bucks though just won. We should focus on them. They're good. But yeah, if they had to pick their opponents, yeah, it'd be very intriguing for sports leagues. But no, Chris's group selection is a brilliant idea. I agree. We all trash talk each other. We build up some great stuff. I mean, the fact that he can play. I mean, I already know in that intro he's going to play me smack talking Barnawal from last season, and then they're going to mention that Barnawal beat me anyhow. So I look forward to the clip of me calling Barnawal a player that thought it was hungry hippos and whatever else I said. And
that's the thing. Everything you mention is future ammunition that can be used against you.
Yeah. Look, I agree. It's great fun, and I lean right into what he wants. So.
Yeah, I love the way you were just. I feel like you just did exactly what you were supposed to do with trash talking. I mean, sure, it might look like it came back to bite you, but in the end, it was high value entertainment.
Correct, and then this season, whatever. I created a fictional history for Matt the Lesser, and if those sound bites are going to come back to bite me, so be it.
Well, okay, Ranior, I have kind of a random question for you. But and so what is the story behind your username Ranior? I know your name is Ryan.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering.
Yeah, that's actually a very good question. back in junior high school, I started playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I just kind of randomly created a character name for my Wood Elf Ranger, and just looking through ideas, I somehow came upon that combination of letters, and it started to become my online username then, because around junior high days and into high school was basically when I started popping online onto various things, and it turned out that Ranior was available pretty much everywhere. And so even to this day, I largely continue to be able to get that username on most platforms, although sometimes I have to add some extra stuff to it. But yeah, that's really, it was just my character name in Dungeons and Dragons, and then I've just used it for pretty much everything.
Well, that's really cool that I mean that it goes so far back that you've been using this username.
Yeah, well, so I
and-
mean, I was gonna say for a lot of you folks are new to Board Game Arena, but I'm not just an old guard Terra Mystica player, and I'm an old guard BGA player. My BGA account is almost 10 years old.
Oh,
Oh wow! Yeah, that's
wow.
another question: is how long has PGA been going? So it has been around for a long time. Oh yeah, because the server status has number of games for the last 10 years. So yeah, I can see back to
BGA
2000.
started probably about 11 years ago now. I'm not quite sure. But yeah, I joined back loosely a little after it got formed. I was into board gaming all through college, and I'll admit to, yeah, a decent number of college lectures being on Board Game Arena playing. Back then, I was playing a lot of Dominion. Dominion was on Board Game Arena, but that ended like 7 years ago already. But
Yeah, I'm seeing an alternative history where I knew about it when I was at uni, and yeah, I don't know how well or badly that would have ended. Yeah.
it's a little dangerous. Yeah, it's not. It wasn't. It wasn't the best. It wasn't the best thing, but yeah.
So you said that you're a D&D player. Are you still a D&D player?
Yeah, yeah. Wednesday. So Wednesday nights is my usual Dungeons and Dragons night. So I've had to reschedule this upcoming week because yeah, I have to play F2O instead. So
Right. Well, I'm a D&D player too. Yeah, I'm in like 2 different campaigns right now.
nice.
But I wonder how big of an overlap there is between like the D&D community and the Terra Mystica community, because they're both tabletop games, but they're such different games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I wouldn't assume a crazy amount, but there's definitely some. I mean, there's just enough like overall people interested in gaming, right? So like Logus, for example, I know is also plays Dungeons and Dragons, and is obviously a pretty well-known Terra Mystica player. I'm sure there's a decent number of others, but yeah, it's tricky. It depends. It depends on how much people are just tabletop gamers as a whole, and how much they are Terra Mystica players or whatever. It's
Right.
always I don't always know. I know a lot of like more general overall board gamers. That was the other thing I think that surprised me a little last F2O, and just talking to some players. They like, I think Barnawal is an example of like, I think he essentially is like, he doesn't play a lot of games, and he mostly just plays some Terra Mystica, I think. So
Right. Though we've started playing code names.
yeah.
Yeah, Barnawal and Clavo have started playing code names and inviting random people.
Yeah, I'm keen to try that when the time zone allows and when work is a bit less busy. Yeah, I'm hoping to join for some of that.
Oh, right. I guess they do normally do it when you're asleep.
Yeah, the time zone thing is, I think did I mention it to Ghostly? Like, it does make me want to just move to America. All this stuff, because so much of it would be so much easier if I was in the same time zone as you guys.
It does make sense. This is part of what I'm looking forward to MSO. They very much are going to be your time zone, but that works for me because I'm an early. Again, I like the early mornings. So
Me and Ghostly, we're going to win. This is our time.
look, I mean, last year, yeah, I think last year, like I say, I think it was 2 Europeans that got first and second. So
Yeah, interesting. Maybe it does affect things. Like when the NFL teams come and play in London, the whole time zone thing there messes them up, I think, quite a lot.
Yeah.
So yeah, BGA, What's other games are interesting you at the moment? What other things would you recommend for people? And what's coming up that you're interested in?
Well, so coming up, spoiler alert, if you haven't already heard, Great Western Trail and Agricola are coming, and you're going to see me playing Terra Mystica less, because I will be playing those. Great Western Trail is likely to come in about a month, and then Agricola, I would expect roughly September currently, I think would be a decent estimate. But Agricola in particular, I think, is something people should check out. But I guess I won't hype it up too much right now, but yeah, I mean, Agricola I think is a much more similar blend of kind of tactics and strategy and depth. Great Western's pretty good. As for stuff that's currently on BGA, I honestly don't play a lot of other stuff right now, and I poke about. I don't think there's necessarily great parallels between Terra Mystica and anything else on BGA currently. In terms of like getting the same feeling of a community and depth of strategy and discussion and all that.
That's the thing is, yeah, it's very different, isn't it? So I do sort of view playing Terra as almost different to playing anything else on there because it is kind of a competitive thing. So yeah, it's interesting. Although you're quite happy to, it's something I really notice about you playing on Twitch is you are, and I talked to the Nerdcube about this, you're clearly very competitive whatever you play. Like you're playing a game of Can't Stop and you want to win that game of Can't Stop and you get annoyed if if your opponent is getting particularly lucky or whatever, which I find very interesting.
Yeah, I had that. I've streamed a couple of other stuff I play on BGA, but yeah, I mean, I view everything from a pretty analytical edge, and I tend to try to play my best at pretty much everything. I mean, and so yeah, I can't stop. Admittedly, was one I shouldn't really dive that deep on, but I've mucked about with some other fleet and other stuff, and yeah, I mean, I do very much on all of these things. Really, I am always trying to win.
Which I find it, I do find it very, like I'll watch your streams when you're playing something that I've got no idea how to play, and I find it really kind of relaxing in a bit of a weird way, just because it's just these sort of words that you don't know what they mean. Like you're talking about like herring and tuna and how much tuna you're going to sell on fleet. And I've got no idea. I mean, I know what tuna and herring is, but it's just this quite relaxing thing. And sometimes, honestly, sometimes I will, because of the time zone thing, it will be late and I'll go to sleep just listening to you talking about whatever.
All right, excellent. No, I have been a bit surprised with streaming. Just there's a decent number of people that have kind of reached out and seem to appreciate it, so it's been fun. And I still am fairly active over on Board Game Geek and wander around, and occasionally, even on those forums, suddenly people recognize my username now too and mention it, which is that part has been fun and intriguing. And yeah, like I do think in the future we'll stream some Great Western and Agricola too, so we can people that are looking for new stuff. I'll probably be over there, and I'll keep doing some Terra Mystica. But yeah, I'm at a little bit of a lull with Terra Mystica right now, anyhow, which that happens too. I don't, with any hobby and interest, I think it can wax and wane a little. I think Nerdcube needs a slight break from Terra Mystica and might be taking one a little bit right now, anyhow, too. And so, like, that happens. It makes sense.
Yeah, we're kind of, some of these questions have come from Super Kazani as well, that we're sort of asking now, kind of about the other stuff. But yeah, on the streaming side, like, firstly, and I said this to Eric as well, you're both extremely impressive with like how you can play and talk at the same time. I only tried it once when I was on Weber's stream, and it's hard. It's really hard. But you're very natural that you can play like this high level game, smash, especially when you were playing the Fire and Ice arena season and you were winning and you were up there, but you're talking the whole time. It's really impressive. Do you I don't know. Do you think you're good at that in particular? Is it something you find hard, or it comes naturally?
I think it comes fairly naturally, yeah, and I do think I'm reasonably good at it. Although I have also argued that I actually do think it. I do think streaming has slightly hurt my elo. Actually, I don't.
Mm.
I don't think I play quite as sharp as I would if I was just focusing on the game itself. I don't think it's a huge detriment by any means, um, but yeah, I do agree that I do think actually that's broadly a skill. Zoras is obviously like another really well known streamer, but I do think he struggles a little more with talking and playing. I do think he sometimes has to kind of sit and just think for a minute and not like openly say what he's doing necessarily, which is fine.
Yeah, his streams I think are they're quite different in that way, aren't they? Where he is kind of playing and you're more sort of watching him play and he will comment on things. Whereas with you and like especially yours, if I can feel like I can kind of just have them on and not necessarily be watching them, but just from what you're saying, I can get an idea. And I was talking to Ghostly about this. Like my entire skill of being able to play a tool on Fire and Ice comes from that arena season and your streams. Like I'd never played the map before. I didn't have any idea. And I think Ghostly is the same. We learned by watching you play and like hearing your tips. And a lot of the time I just had it on in the background, while I was doing other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a decent bit of that makes sense. I yeah, I don't know. I guess yeah, I do think I guess I could just blab on about this stuff and still be taking my moves at the same time. I don't know. I guess that's a skill. Yeah, it's not something I've had to work much at on that front. I think generally I also have gotten pretty good at really explaining a lot of why I'm doing what I'm doing and that type of stuff. And those are skills I have built up over time and years. I used to be a tutor, and I think just a lot of years on Board Game Geek trying to be in strategy discussions. And a good 70% of what I'm saying is really just parroting what I learned from other great players. So
yeah, but yeah, maybe like you're saying with Agricola and Great Western Trail coming, maybe you can pass on your knowledge to us.
I'm a bit hopeful. Yeah, I mean, this is talking other topics, but I would be hopeful that both Great Western and Agricola are the sorts of games that I think already have a pretty good player base. There's going to be a lot of interest. I think they're worth studying and playing fairly deeply. I have hope that communities can form for both of those games around BGA as well. And partly through my experience here with some of the Terra Mystica community and just enough other people I know in both Great Western and Agricola worlds. I think both of those games will start to have pretty strong communities too, which will be exciting. I think I half blabbed it to Bizzle, but depending on how much he really wants to keep expanding his Fire 2 brand, I would be hopeful even that in the future maybe there'll be a Great Western and a Agricola Fire 2 streams as well.
Nice.
But that's throwing a lot more work on Bizzle's plate, who is already a very busy man. So we'll no promises anybody, but
So while we're brainstorming, you could have the triathlon. You could have who's the best, like some kind of interlinked scoring system, and who's best at all of them.
yeah.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
so that both interestingly, both WBC and MSO have awards like that. They have an award for like the best overall performance for the week, and based on like how many hours like the game gets played, how many people play that game, and what you finish, you get so many points. And so if you win an event, that 300 people contested it, and you got first place, you get a lot of points. And then at the end of the week, there is an award for the best like overall player. So that is pretty. Yeah, those are fun parts of both of those events too.
That's so good. This is what I'm finding more and more is if there's like an obscure scoring system to be worked out, you can basically trust like board game people to have worked out like the optimal way of like scoring or something.
Exactly. And both of the systems are pretty complex. I'm not really going to dive into them except to say yes again. Both of them tend to take the like overall field into account and the overall like number of hours played, and then try to like output a score for that tries to be able to normalize between all the different fields so that we can compare accomplishments, which is obviously not trivial at all. So but the gamers definitely have done it, which is great fun. WBC even does something else like silly and fun. They also have a team tournament where you pick 4 people on your team, and they also award a prize for the best overall team.
Okay.
Which also has its own scoring system. So good times.
Yeah. So on the stream, you haven't played Arena this current season, which is coming to an end soon.
Well, that's mostly true. I pulled out the alt account.
You haven't hit it hard.
I pulled out the alt account for about 4 streams, but
and I think, I mean, I guess I've seen you discuss this, but you mentioned it on the stream that Loon Lakes is not your favorite map, and that's partly the reason why you didn't play much this season.
it's like entirely the reason. Well, it's not. I also don't really like landscapes. Like Lakes landscapes is about my least favorite format. I might even prefer revised. So.
I actually have a question for Ranior. And this is a question straight from this questions document. And I'm going to read this word for word. Why witches? That's it. Why witches?
So, to be fair, this has just turned into a bit of a meme with me streaming. Witches are quite good on the Fire and Ice map, and I wound up playing like just quite a few Witches games last season because I truly believe people just undervalued them. And to be fair, I had a lot of successes with Witches games on stream. Now, for whatever reason, I also have a stupid amount of fun playing Witches. I think they just work pretty like. I do think one of the things I tend to like to play economy, as a lot of people have known. I enjoy building lots of stuff. Witches have a payoff for building stuff in terms of they get extra points for towns. I also like making towns. I think it's a lot of the strength of Terra Mystica. I think what really makes Terra Mystica special in certain ways is that you're fighting for you want neighbors because you want leech and you want cheap upgrades, but you want enough space to also be able to expand and make towns. And like that has a beautiful balance between it of trying to find neighbors, but also trying to have area. Anyhow, whatever. So I think trying to find town space is kind of a critical like part of what makes the game so special. And witches are very focused on that as well. And I don't know. It is a part of the game I've always enjoyed, and I do just love me some econ witches, so it is one of my favorite factions, but it really is also partly just Fire and Ice. I think the witches are so well positioned on that map. I just have great fun playing them there, and then I wound up playing a lot of games on that map because that was the arena season. I was streaming a lot of that, so I don't know. I have a lot of other factions I like, but yeah, witches probably are my favorite anyhow too. So.
I guess the big question is, since the new F2O is on Fire and Ice, can we expect to see a Witches game from you? Or
maybe.
I mean, we'll see.
That's what I mean. That was during the selection, right? That's what I got made fun of. The Nerd Cube joked that if you just throw an Orin, I can't compete because there will be no witches in the game. And others claimed that if they just threw in witches, they knew I would overbid on them. So.
I'd be interested to see if anybody does actually try that tactic, because I think, I don't know, surely nobody actually believes that.
Again, I agree. I think we all understand the way group selection, like, I think we all understand the spirit of that, and I think we all largely know what we're blabbing about. I mean, Lumen called out Eric for that anyhow, because I did wind up, like, part of how I got into F2O this season is I had to qualify, and I had a win with Orin, so throw an Orin if you want. I proved that I can still win with them, but, yeah, I mean, again, whatever. Me and Witches on Fire and Ice in particular has turned into a bit of a meme, and that's fine. It's good fun.
It's hilarious.
And look, to be honest, I do have a tendency to want to throw in witches. I might throw in witches, and if witches are in there, yeah, I do tend to bid them. I maybe I overbid them, but as I've said, I've had a lot of success with Witches on Fire and Ice. I tend to think most people underbid them, which is also part of why I threw them in so often. Like, I really think I have an edge with playing Witches on that map that a lot of other players mess up. So,
I mean, didn't Witches win last Wednesday? Am I remembering that right?
Yeah. Babbitt won with Witches.
Yeah, so. Babbitt won with Witches on the Fire and Ice. So you know, you probably have something there. Well, guys, it's already. I know we've been talking for an hour and a half. I think I probably need to go.
Yeah, sure. So we're definitely in the realm where this is going to be a second episode. I think we can split it in two.
Yeah, you look, as I've said, I'll talk as much as you want, like whatever you want. So I'm happy to keep going. You can have me back other times, whatever.
Let's keep going because I've got a few more questions. If you want to carry on, Lizzy.
All right, I'll get going. But it was so great to talk to both of you. This has been really fun.
Yeah.
And looking forward to hearing this when it comes out. So have a good Sunday.
Thanks for joining us.
Enjoy the pond of well-being.
I guess I'm in Louisiana. I think it would be a swamp. The swamp of mystery. That's where I am. I'm in the swamp of mystery. All right, bye guys.
See ya. There's a few more things just to mention, and I think this will make like a nice second episode, which will come out at some point. It was about so it was about your stream basically, and Super mentioned this question. You've got sort of like the few other things that you're doing, like the teammate? I really like the teammate Thursday one. I really like the one with Super. I think you're a great couple. I really enjoyed you. That's why I kind of hoped he would be here today, because I think you were a great pairing.
Super was really fun to do that with. I'll admit I've been obviously very sloppy over the last couple of weeks. Real life has just intervened, and I've not done my teammate Thursdays like at all. The only streams I've had recently are all player commentaries. But I really want to get back to trying to have a pretty consistent Thursday stream with a teammate, because I agree that format's been fun, and it was a way to stop just always having it be blabbing on about stuff, which I mean that's been useful, but I sort of feel at the point that if you guys really want, you could go to YouTube and I can already see me play 30, 40, 50 games, and I feel like I do start dispensing the same little nuggets of wisdom. So it's fun to hear how other people approach the game and what they're thinking about at times. So yeah, I like that format, and it was partly through, I don't remember if it was necessarily you, but just talking with enough different people about kind of ideas and what they wanted to see. So I do think that's a fun little one to try to keep doing more in the future.
Yeah, I like stuff like that. I think my opinion is that there's still value in the games where you're just playing, partly because people just kind of like hanging out and chatting, and it's almost not like it becomes a bit of just a fun thing for everyone to hang out.
I agree with that too. I'm not saying I'm never going to do those, and I do agree that partly what streaming has been fun for me, and I think for others, it is fun that we've get a bit of a community behind it too. Like we actually have enough people in chat that there can be some real conversations, and there can be some actual now memes and in jokes and whatever, and there's little communities, and that's part of what makes the overall community and stuff so interesting and whatever too. So but yeah, the US here has kind of more or less fully opened up, coupled with it being summer here in Wisconsin, and I've found myself much busier again, and so I got to find that right blend again now of how much to stream and what to stream and still fit in other stuff in life. And so we'll see exactly what that all resolves into, but
yeah, and you don't have to have a definite plan, do you? I think that's the good thing about Twitch in a way, is you can do whatever you want, and people will come if they want to watch.
I do think Lumen, like, it's nice to have a set time to be streaming at. I think that can help a little with like making people actually tune in and know when to go, but
Mm.
I largely struggle with that. And so yeah, I agree. It's pretty nice. I can just start whenever, and usually there's enough people around that it kind of works. And if there aren't, well, whatever. It still goes up into a VOD, and um, that's the thing. Like I've been struggling to realize too is like I get a decent number of people talking during videos, which is great, but there are a decent number that are just watching and I don't really know. But like I say, like on BGG here, a couple people have reached out once or twice too, and I do think there are like a bit more overall watching all this stuff than I think, which is cool, and it is part of what I think helps draw people into the community and all that. So I definitely should keep doing some of it, but also happy that there's now quite a few other options too, including I think quite a few people doing a pretty good job at it. So
Yeah, there's a good cast of it. There's a good group doing it, I think. And yeah, I would encourage. Yeah, it's sometimes, yeah, I'll be watching and I don't necessarily have anything to say, especially if you're playing something that I'm not familiar with. I can't be like, oh, you should have solved the herring. But I kind of just want to say like, hi.
and you guys often should, yeah. I guess that's the one thing I will encourage just everybody. Whether you're discussing this, or you're reading stuff on Board Game Geek, or you are in Twitch streams, just poke up, ask any question at all you have, and if you don't even have a question, yeah, just say hi. Like it's fine. Like for any of these streamers, I do think it's hard to know exactly how many people you're really helping, and like
Mm.
with all this stuff, or if I were too open too, like if you like it, like make it clear and make it clear what you want. Just everything in life. I've done enough stuff on Board Game Geek too, where I type up crazy long strategy posts just because I do enjoy discussing games, and I eventually realized like a lot of people read it, but not all that many people always comment or like even say anything, and so it can be hard as a like kind of content creator to know exactly how many people might appreciate what you're doing if they don't make that clear. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to get better at, yeah, even just putting a little comment saying like, yeah, thanks for this on the Board Game Geek stuff. And I haven't, to be honest.
well, and whatever, and not everybody's gonna do it, but yeah, it just if you're ever thinking about it and it pops in your head and you don't really know what to say, just do it anyhow. Get in the habit of it. It's handy for a lot of people.
Yeah, and same with this. Like we're making these shows, and yeah, I'm like, I'd love to hear if people are listening and if people enjoy them, and if people think they're too long or whatever. I'd be really interested to hear what people think.
That's a great point too. Completely agreed. Yeah, yeah. So people, if you're listening to this and you enjoy it, yeah, chime in. Let EJ know. Let him know what else you want to hear. And I agree. Like that feedback's really helpful. And even if it's not much feedback beyond you just enjoy it, just hearing that's important because I don't know how many people you think or know are currently listening to these, but right, is it worth your time to try to schedule and do it if only 3 people are listening? Probably not. I'm guessing you're getting a lot more than that, but who knows if nobody lets you know? So.
Yeah, you do get like SoundCloud stats, like it's. But to be honest, I've got no idea how many of those are just bots.
Well, that's my issue too. I agree with Twitch views and YouTube views, right? It's hard to know, like it's so interpersonal at that point of this like, okay, maybe those are people, but I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And but it is the it's the greatest feeling when someone does actually say like, I listened to that and I liked it. It feels so good. It's really cool.
Yeah.
And also on the Fire 2, like the Fire 2 chat on the games is such good fun. And the one
Yeah.
yesterday, I had such a laugh. I think people, yeah, I'd encourage anybody who's watching that to just like say hello. And then a lot of the time I end up looking more at the chat than I'm looking at the game. I'll be honest, because it's just funny. It's just a good laugh.
The chat is a lot of fun too, I agree. And it's again that's part of the kind of like community feeling, I think, a little bit too of a lot of us whatever, and it's good, and you can always go rewatch the game later too, so
Um, on your streaming, do you have any plans for a run at Arena again in a season that maybe has better settings? Would you still going to try and get that win one day?
maybe. I mean, it is a thing I would like to. It's it's a thing I'd like to notch. I'd love to get a win in an arena season. I have a top 10 finish. I have a top 5 finish. But as I kind of said, it's a little tricky because I think the volume of games it takes to like really have a good shot is probably higher than I'm gonna have time for, especially now that yeah, we're not in a pandemic or quarantine period. Like the idea of even getting like 50 games a season is playing a game every other day, and that's a decent bit to commit. That's 6 hours or 7 hours of Terra Mystic every week. It's not that easy for me to fit in anymore necessarily. And so then I don't even think 50 games gives you that great of a shot. I think it's more like 100. And so now you're talking, that is like 13 hours of Terra Mystic a week, roughly.
It's a lot.
Yeah, I mean that's a game every day, right? Like I mean, the seasons are 90 days roughly, and so like, I mean, to be fair, like again, like the people that have won, like Halai and Nerdcube, when you ask them how many games they played, that's what they were doing. They played about a game a day, or even a little more. Um, so realistically, I probably am not going to win an arena season. I think is my feeling. Um, I don't think I'm going to put enough games in. With that said, I probably will wind up playing a decent number more games. I'll at least play more than I did on Lakes here, because yes, like next season I think is going back to base no landscapes. I'm a pretty big fan of that format still, even though it's classic. Like I enjoy that. I think Fjords landscapes is going to come up. I love Fjords map. Don't love landscapes, but they're fine. And so yeah, like I think I would really like that season. So I'll probably play on those. But the other problem is that yes, again, Agricola and Great Western Trail are probably going to also distract me pretty heavily for a while. So
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I didn't mention it before, but Great Western Trail is one of the ones that I've like read about and watched videos about, and I've never played it. I've never played many games, but that is one that I'm pre-warning my friends. We once it comes out,
nice.
we've got to give it a go.
Yeah, you should. And, I mean, maybe you won't love it, but yeah, I guess the other silly thing to see is like, I also, yeah, I do like just, again, I am competitive. I like hitting certain benchmarks and stuff. And so, somewhat sillily, but also somewhat real is like, if you want to try to get like a number one ELO badge in a game, it's much easier to do so in the first couple months. There's a lot of bad players.
Ooh,
The
yes.
ratings haven't stabilized yet. And so, like if you're just the guy that played this the most, like as long as you play enough games early on, you often can kind of skyrocket up there. So the problem is both of those games I'm probably going to greedily try to get up pretty high pretty quickly. And so yeah, when those first release, I'm probably going to be quite distracted from Terra Mystica. But
Maybe I have to pivot and make a Great Western Trail podcast once everyone leaves.
I think there'll still be plenty of Terra Mystica players. Again, there's a strong community and it'll rotate and whatever. It's like fine. It's just yeah, my gaming interest too. Again, will wax and wane, and like again, it's like on some level, like I still really enjoy Terra Mystica, but I have achieved a lot of what I would like to get out of the game, and there's still some more stuff I can learn. But yeah, I mean, I have hit the number one rating on BGA. I got over a 700 elo. I like some of those benchmarks that were kind of my goals for a while. I hit so.
So yeah, so at the top is a sort of question we've asked a few people, but who would you say are the who would you either say if you were going to play a table with three other people, or who would you just say in general are like the top four players on the scene?
Top four players like currently right now in BGA.
Currently, yeah.
So I think probably everybody has to agree that Nerdcube's on there. I think it's hard to argue. I think if we had like an average rating over the past year, Nerdcube presumably has the highest. Well, Sprockets maybe technically, but that's a different case a little bit, right? So Nerdcube has one of the highest average ratings. He's just crushed the last couple arena seasons, and by crushed I mean he's the guy that has the craziest like overall performance.
He's amazingly consistent.
Exactly. He's won several seasons and he's always in the top 3 or whatever. Like I mean it's nuts. And then just all the other competitions or anything, he's been incredibly, consistent in there. So I think Nerdcube's an easy inclusion. The other ones get a lot trickier and harder. I think there's a lot more debate you could try to have. I think I would still put Zoras on the list, but that might be a little bit of me just being used to Zoras and I in the very early days of BGA, where Joyce you're like jousting back and forth on the #1 badge for a little bit, and also he's just been super highly rated over on Snellman for a while. But
I really like the way he kind of. I got the impression he was like maybe getting a bit bored of. I mean, not bored, but I think he was looking at Gaia a lot more, and he was maybe getting a bit less interested in Terra. But then and I think you were the one who mentioned it when the international clash, the voting things where everyone pitched why they should be in the team, and Zoras just like phoned it in. Really, it was just like, I am well known in the community. Pick me. I'm not going to put any more into this.
yeah, yeah. And I mean, to be fair, he was the preeminent streamer. He was he was the top active player on Snellman, and he was one of the top active players on BGA. So yeah, like the man deserved it. But yeah, I mean Zoras, I agree, is I think a little on the like downward trend of Terra Mystica. I don't think it compels him as much anymore. And that happens. It's fine.
Yeah, he's playing a lot of Gaia, but then I really like that he did come into that Canada team, and they won, and we talked to them about it, which was really interesting. And I did like that. I don't know, I was sort of like secretly hoping that it would inspire him to go on and make all the ultimate guides.
Oh yeah, everybody wants him to do. Yeah, so the fact that he creates actual like strategy content, not just like playthroughs, like I've been doing streaming, is also like a real, very cool thing he's done for the community. But yeah, I mean, I don't think he has the drive to make all those ultimate guides, and that's totally fair.
Yeah, it's not like his responsibility to, for sure.
Regardless, though, I think I'd still throw him on there. And so that's two of the tables. Other top active players. I would probably throw Deep Finesse on there. That man's really shown up on the scene over the last 6 months as well. Been competitive in arena seasons. He's been up near the top of the leaderboard. Hit the #1 rating for a little bit. I think he's proven. I think he's definitely proven to be one of the best active players overall. And so then, were you throwing me on the table, or I don't know, was I picking 4 players here or what?
I think you've picked 4 others.
I've picked 3. I haven't. I have Nerd Cube, Zoras, and Deep Finesse. So that's where you need me to pick one more or not.
Oh yeah, there we go. Yeah. So, well, I guess the question is, do you put
I think I'm one of the top 4?
Yeah, that's the hard hitting question then, right?
Yeah. Honestly, I don't know. Yeah, I think I have an argument for it, but I don't know if I have that strong of an argument. My arena seasons aren't incredible. My rating's up there, but there's other people right in my area, and I don't know if I have necessarily the accolades some of the others do. So yeah, I don't totally know who I would throw as the 4th currently though. Like who else is the best active player? I guess the other 3 kind of like names to consider would be like Barnawal, Astari, and Sprockets, but Sprockets to me doesn't play enough actual live games within the typical group for me to think he actually belongs there. Astari to me also doesn't really have enough games to make me that convinced he's up in that echelon yet. He's had some decent performances for sure amongst some other really strong 4-player players, so it's not like he can't hang, but his sample size is pretty small, so I'm not necessarily saying it's fluky, but I don't have enough evidence to convince me that he's not just like a 550 level player that's on a bit of a hot streak. Which maybe I'm just wrong, and so then I guess I'm putting Barnawal. But my problem with Barnawal is that he also hasn't have that many games. He doesn't have huge arena season to point to. He's currently up there in the ratings, and he's played well in recent memory. But I don't know. It depends a little bit on how much I'm putting into overall, like kind of lifetime stats versus truly like, am I picking just the 4 players from the last week or something? So.
Yeah, that's the thing. I think I'm going to say the table is you, Eric, Nerdcube,
Zoras and Deep Finesse. Yeah,
And
I'd
Deep Finesse,
be.
yeah, I'm putting you on the table. There we go. I've
All right.
decided.
Again, I think it's an interesting argument. One name I didn't mention at all actually is Halai. I think Halai actually maybe is who I would throw instead of me, but
yeah, that's true. Yeah, and he's a sort of Team Europe colleague. The one, but the other one that this is why I'm really interested in that table. Is it Group F? Yeah, Group F on Fires Open is the Deep Finesse Zavok matchup, because that is like new Terra against old Terra. It's the clash of like.
yes. Well, and that's totally fair. Yeah, I obviously did not throw Zavok on my top 4 here, and I wouldn't.
I'm really interested to see how his run goes in this tournament.
Yeah, so am I. I was about to say, like, if I'm making a Mount Rushmore of Terra Mystica figures, he's on there. But which is another really, yeah, I was gonna say that's an interesting question. I don't know how much you want to debate that in a sec, but yeah, I mean, Zavok's been very interesting to watch. Though he's obviously kind of over the last 3 months or so, like kind of popped back into the Terra Mystica world. Maybe it's even more than that now. Maybe it's already been 6 or something. But
it was the clash, right? It was the start of the clash.
Right around then, he started popping in. He's played a decent number of games now in BJ. It looks like about 50, and he is up to a 600 rating. He's in the top 30 players rated. So, but I think he's like just recently hit that point. So yeah, I haven't quite been convinced yet if he's where exactly he falls amongst the elite. He's still very strong, but is he right up there with the very best we have today, or is he just slightly behind? I don't really know.
Yeah, so that game for the listener is on the 3rd of July. So that's the final group game. That is definitely one to put in your calendar.
Yeah, and I was gonna say I'm excited about that because I get to cast that with Bizzle, so I do think we're gonna go. That's gonna be very fun and crazy. Yeah, I'm very happy to be able to. I'll be very happy to be able to criticize all their moves and be wrong about it all. It'll be great.
Bizzle's going to really enjoy that because Zavok is his hero.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's do it. I've got one more other question after this, and then I think we're at about a good time. So let's do the Mount Rushmore.
We are going to do it though. Okay, excellent. Yeah, I'm ready for this quick discussion. Yeah.
This ties back to the earlier discussion of, I'm new to this and I'm really enjoying learning about the history and cycling back to those early Tmtour seasons and all that. So I'm guessing, from what I can gather, Zavok could be on it because he is the original legend. I think I would put Zoras on it based on VGA stuff. But yeah, what do you think?
I think there's 2 easy names. I think Zavok is so clearly on it, and for people who aren't aware, the man was insane. He understood how to play TM at a super high level before anybody else did. In the first 14 seasons of Tmtour, Zavok won 9 of them. These are 7-player groups. Like, he should have won 2, would be the expectation. And that assumes he even stays. So the other crazy thing, the way Tmtour works is you have to be in the top 5 in order to like stay in D1. If you're in 6th or 7th place, you drop out. So he actually never dropped out for the first 14 seasons. And on top of that, he won 9 out of 14. It's just an absolute insane accomplishment. He had the highest rating on Snellman for a long time until TT Chong essentially, like, he was also a very strong player and he got a higher rating and stopped playing so he could just stay ahead of Zavok. Like, Zavok still, I think, has the 2nd highest rating of all time on Snellman right now. And yeah, so he's just a crazy legend of the early days of just absolute domination. He made a nice number of posts. He helped the community get to where it is. I think Zoras is also, yes, clearly there nowadays. He has the highest active, or had for a while, the highest active rating on Snellman. He's managed to be the highest rated player in BGA in the past. He's had some top level arena performances. He's made crazy amount of strategy and other content to help people get there. So those are names that kind of go there. The other 2 are a lot harder. I don't necessarily know who I would throw, to be honest, and so yeah, maybe it's not a great question. One name that I might consider is just Snellman himself. It depends on how much you want to give him credit for just making the website, making the start of this community ever be a thing. He is a strong enough player in his own right. He played in D1 for quite a few seasons. Tmtour has a thing called a marathon table that tries to like rank people based on their overall lifetime in the tournaments, and Jay Snell or his player profile is number 4 on that list. So
yeah, with Zavok at number 1, of course. Yeah.
yeah. And so then the final name that I would consider that I don't think a lot of other people would, but me personally, I would throw Steve 496. Steve is also high up on the marathon table. He's a former D1 champion. And the main reason I value Steve is because of all of his BGG contributions.
Yes.
He writes a lot of very good and insightful things. And I would claim that half of what I parrot on my streams and stuff is taken or paraphrased from the ideas he put into me through conversations and talking and all that stuff. So I guess my Mount Rushmore of Terra Mystica figures though leaves off Nerdcube, which maybe is wrong nowadays. Maybe he's, given how much arena success he's had, maybe he's supposed to be on there. But
this is again my. There are 4 ex-presidents on Mount. It's 4, right, on Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. Sorry, there's 4. Yeah, I forget. So who are like the 4 most influential figures in Terra Mystica history? It's tough. I think Zavok and Zoras are pretty clearly on there. I think I'm going to throw Snellman just for creating the website and being a very strong player himself. And then I think I'm going Steve 496. I would certainly listen to arguments for Nerdcube. And then there's some other stuff I could make. My problem is I probably am putting a little too much value on the old Snellman top players in the Snellman or in the BGG forums compared to what a lot of people nowadays would do. Because, like you say, over the last year or two, you don't know Steve 496 at all. You've only started to know Shevak.
But also I've read the threads. I can.
Okay, you have. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll link to some of them. But yeah, the sort of depth of analysis, and he's done some recent ones with the 2 most popular he's done so far, metas in Div 1.
Yeah,
in all Tmtour divisions. It's so awesome.
His writing is remarkably clear. I'm very jealous of his ability to. I think he puts in a lot of editing time as my guess. He puts very crystallized, concise thoughts, and that's one thing I'm not good at is brevity. Given that I've now helped talk for 2 hours already, and I think you still said you had one more question. So, you almost make me want to see what people would vote on. I'm curious what the communities would vote on, but
let's post it when this episode gets released.
Oh, yeah. Reach out to me. Yeah, I'll try to make a list. I would actually be really interested to see what other people would submit as their top 4, or just what names they would think of. Yeah.
Yeah, because it links into the history, and I like the idea that maybe some of the newer players can sort of worship at the shrine of all the stuff that's sort of built this, because it is what built this thing that we are now taking advantage of and enjoying. So I think it's good to, especially people like Steve, who he mentioned on one of the threads that it linked to what we said earlier. He wasn't sure whether people were getting value from it. And I do actually have him on a Google Doc as one of the people who I'd like to talk to on this.
Oh, wow. That would be super cool, actually. Yeah.
To do sort of like a technical statisticky deep dive, something like that. So yeah, I'd really like to talk to him. And go into some detail about that, and that might happen maybe. Cool. Yeah, I really like that. That's great. So yeah, what was my last question? I've lost my document. Oh yeah, so it was kind of it's linked to what we've talked about already, and I think you've spoken to it, and we've kind of talked about it. But what in general do you think about the fact that this community has grown? I think there's advantages and there's disadvantages to sort of this wider group of people playing, because I know originally maybe it was a bit more of a tight-knit thing and maybe everyone knew everyone, and now maybe that's not the case. are you like happy with the state of this thing that's going on?
Very happy. I don't really believe too much of there being disadvantages to the community growing, or at least not currently. I mean, I guess there's that tricky question, right? Like, I really like the culture and the helpfulness and everything that the community currently has, and if somehow suddenly tomorrow we got 10,000 new people in the community, suddenly whatever we currently have, it might get drowned out or something. But we're not growing that fast by any means. All the new people and faces that start popping in, assimilate's not quite the right word, but I mean, they get kind of like, they wind up feeling out kind of what a lot of us are about and what we want, and if they're interested in that, they're kind of with, and there are names that are consistent, and I think we all start to learn certain kind of inside jokes and other stuff, and not everybody knows it all, but yes, me and Witches on Fire and Ice has become a bit of a meme, and a lot of people in this streaming and stuff knows now that George Shortwell just like always wants to support Water 2, and that's a fun little kind of in joke, and there's lots of other stuff like that there's still a pretty tight knit group anyhow. I think growth is very important, and I'm really happy that BJ has grown a bunch, that Bizzle has helped make this whole F2O thing happen, that you're doing this, and that streaming's happening. Like, growth for any game is really important. I want to keep growing because inevitably people will drop off too. I'm not going to play quite as much currently. Chris Ho has been really struggling to play. Like, if you can't just hope to maintain because you're always going to lose people over time. Some people are just going to not have as much time. Some people are going to lose interest. Eventually, people will completely leave the game. Like, it just, that happens too. And so you always need some of this rotation. Yeah, I don't know. Overall, I think I think it's been incredible actually over the last year. The growth that's been seen is great. The enthusiasm, the community, like the number of players that have found this game and have been able to realize there's a community here to help them get better, that is here to have lots of a bunch of different fun events. The F2O is part of that, and just enough other scheduled games and other little mini tournaments that get thrown together, and people are willing to talk during the games and stuff and after the games, and yeah, it's a really cool group, and I think it's great that we continue to grow, and I'd encourage everybody to help it grow. I don't always. The one thing I actually regret a little bit about streaming is I actually talk significantly less in the chat than like of the game itself because of that. And I don't think I do as much post game discussion there. I don't think I do as much like prodding as I used to do there, and I don't think I try to like help fold people in as much as I would like to. And so just as a whole, I'd encourage everybody to start doing that too. When you start running into new players that seem interested and are kind of talkative and interested, make sure they're aware of Fire 2, make sure they're aware of the Fire 2 Discord, make sure that, we're folding in new people that are interested and want to learn more about the game and want to participate. Because all of that's really helpful. And then finally, the other reason I think growth is just important and good is like Ghostly is now doing some social media stuff. I think you are too, and you're doing this podcast. Just eventually, Bizzle's going to burn out of running these things, and I'm going to burn out of writing big posts and whatever, right? Like, again, communities just need new people to eventually step up and make certain content and stuff to keep it all going. Zoras is slowing down on strategy content. If there's anybody out there that wants to make ultimate guides, I'm guessing Zoras would be willing to help them a little bit. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would love if all the ultimate guides got created, but yeah, who's going to do it? I don't know. And this is just partly what happens over time too. So
Cool. Yeah. Oh, that's really great. I really like that. And yeah, I think that's an excellent sentiment. Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's the whole sort of scene is very healthy, and it's everything's in the right spirit, and there's like just the right amount of competitiveness, but also friendliness and people helping each other. And
yeah, completely agreed. And yeah, so if anybody out there listening too, yeah, if you want to get more involved, like just partly occasionally just reach out, talk to people. Almost everybody, like almost all of the top players, if you're in a game with them and you after the game ask them what you could have done better, or if they can review it later, they're willing to. Like, there's a lot of players in this community that are very willing to help each other get better, and that's. I mean, that's part of how the community continues to grow and form, and how there's so many more strong players and stuff. So it is really good.
Cool. Well, yeah, thank you for your part in that. With yeah, like I said, the my sort of early diet was watching you on Lumen's thing, but then also all the Twitch stuff. So yeah, and everything else that you've done. So thank you, Ryan, for that. And thank you for this. This was a really cool conversation. I really enjoyed it, and I hope it comes out really well. Yeah, thank you for your very generous time. Much appreciated.
Yeah, not a problem. Thanks so much for having me. Thanks for doing this. I think it's really cool, and I hope that you continue to get some fun conversations and continue to have interesting guests and interesting times, and I think it's a fun addition to the community. So
Cool. Thanks. Nice talking to you. Speak to you soon, probably at some point.
all right, yeah. Thanks much. I'll see you around.
See ya.